As I mentioned just before we went to break, word is beginning to make its way around now that as of January 1, these people who are the so-called non-categoricals, main care clients who are receiving addiction treatments thanks to funding provided by the main care program, that funding is going away. And it's going away like somebody shut off a switch come January 1.
Right. There's a number of things I would want to help share from my perspective, at least. The studies are very clear, Don, that people who are in long-term recovery and looking to get their life back together, if they're shut off from treatment, there's about a 90% relapse rate, which is staggering. But if you think about a disease and trying to bridge from medication to non-medication and taking something within a short period of years, which you might have been a very young teenager who was in an abusive family, who turned to medicate yourself from the pain and the suffering that you're experiencing, which is often the case, you might have been using drugs for 10 or 15 years. So to turn around in 2 years is a relatively short comparative time frame. So often that's the framework that people should be thinking in. But the issue is a serious one, and
when you start talking about a rate of some 90% of people who are in a long-term recovery program reverting back to their behaviors prior to entering that recovery, we're talking about people who are going to go out there and start looking for trying to get their hands on well, for example, prescription drugs that have been diverted, or they're going to be looking to get their hands on illicit drugs in order to feed their habit. Those are behaviors that spill over into the broader community in a whole lot of very negative ways. And to think that you're going to see that kind of number of people reverting to behaviors that they've been working to get away from.
Right.
The impact to the larger community is pretty evident.
Well, and it's also not a solution-based approach. We're looking at. Let me give you one story. First off, to define, you're using the term non-categorical.
Yes.
The person in the community wouldn't. What does that mean?
Right.
Really, what a non-categorical? It's a way of describing a single adult. It's an adult. It could be, and we have about 50% women and 50% men. It has been that way from day one. Mm-hmm. As you know, they're predominantly young. So those individuals have been are going to lose it, and simply because they're single. So that when they talk about non-categorical, you're really talking about that group of people.
And they call them non-categoricals because they don't fit into a particular box, a particular description of an individual who is to be provided health care.
Right, exactly. So as far as it, significant numbers are going to be lost in Bangor. We're talking not only people receiving methadone, but Suboxone as well. We're talking in our clinic at Bangor Discovery House, 238 people. And if you add the other two clinics...
I was going to say, certainly more than one location in the city where this treatment is being provided.
Right, and as you know, Suboxone was designed to be done out of doctors' offices. So there are many agencies and doctors' offices providing Suboxone treatment. The rough estimate right now is and again, we're losing about a third of our people in both programs, but we're a young clinic. Older clinics tend to have an older population, so the result is that you're looking at upwards of 50% for some of the other clinics. Some of the other Discovery Houses, which I do know the numbers on, mm-hmm. For example, the Waterville Clinic has 600 methadone. They're losing over 300 methadone. Portland, the South Portland Clinic for Discovery House has 560-ish or so, and they're losing over 300. So that's more than 50%. So if you add the other two clinics with Bangor and you deal with the offices who have been the driving force for 10 years on the Suboxone, you're looking at close to 1,000 people. Now remember, in the field of addiction, one of the most beautiful things about it, and one of the most terrifying things, is that you've got to when a person falls into relapse, or a person gets into treatment, which is the positive side, their family situation improves, their marital relationship, their children's relationships. So you're impacting multiple people. And remember, when main care is taken away from an individual, they can't go and get treatment for themselves.
Right. So
in many ways,
it would not be hyperbole to say that this is a real time bomb for these people. This is a situation that is going to be.
Let me tell you one story.
Completely untenable.
That will give you a 28-year-old woman came into my office. She has turned her life around fabulously, doing many things very positively. And she comes to me and says, "What can you do to help me? My recovery, my life has turned around. Everything's going well in my relationships in my life, but I'm going to lose main care. Can you help me?" And I say, I tried to do my best to come up with some options, because she's a really caring, nice person. Mm-hmm. And she says, I called DHHS and I said, well, what can you do for me? And they said, well, if you were pregnant, you'd probably continue. So what's happening is that people are faced with this, women in particular, are faced with this terrible choice of, do I get pregnant so that I can continue my recovery? Because if I don't stay in recovery, I'm going to relapse potentially. Mm-hmm. They're faced with this ultimate horror, and to me that is. Can you imagine? If there will be some people who ethically may feel they have to do that.
We're speaking with Brent Miller. He's a program director at Discovery House Bangor. Brent, I'm concerned we're going to run out of time. We got less than 2 minutes here to go. We're going to have to continue this conversation in the not too distant future, especially between now and the first of the year, when these young people find themselves without coverage anymore. But in the very near term, somebody's listening to this. If they want to find out more information, if they want to try to see some sort of change affected, what's the course of action for people?
Well, the most important thing is get involved. Call your legislator. The legislative session is going back in January.
Yep.
I believe that the Affordable Care Act, which was passed by the legislature but vetoed by the governor,
yes,
if that is passed, all these people will be in treatment and continue with main care. And an expanded group of very needy people will be able to access it as well. So people will be able to deal with their disease of lifelong disease. So I would recommend that. I also recommend, if folks who are actually suffering with the loss, they can call Consumer Care Healthline at 800-965-7476, or the main Equal Health Partners at 866-626-7059.